Choosing a Home by ginnyrules27, Chapter 60. Final chapter, guys! Mal sighed as she rode through Oridon City. It was a couple of weeks after her official wedding to Ben, and now she would be crowned Queen of Oridon. Yeah, that wasn't an intimidating thought or anything. Thankfully, Ben had had the gift from the gods, and had been there every step of the way, in terms of planning. Probably helped that he had gone through his own coronation, so he knew what to expect. And it also probably helped that they had been planning her coronation alongside their official wedding, as to avoid too much stress the night they were married. Of course, Ben had also spoiled her as much as he could. He had made her old locker a national monument, allowing her to touch up the faded spray paint, and made a proclamation that Haddie and their unborn sibling would receive the locker once they made it to Oridon Prep. Mal had even put a spell over the tag as to prevent the paint from fading from view. Evie, of course, had been ecstatic to design Mal's dress for the coronation, though honestly, with how amazing her dresses had been, Mal would have been out of her mind to use another designer. You know, if you told me when I was a kid that I'd be letting Evie design my clothes for big events, or that I'd be crowned Queen of Oridon for that matter, I'd have Harry or Jay shove you off the docks since you'd clearly gone mad. Mal thought, continuing to wave to the crowds as the carriage made its way to the cathedral. There was a not-so-small part of her that wished Ben was riding in the carriage with her, but Mal knew he couldn't. Not because he was busy or anything, but because, just like his coronation so many years ago, it was a tradition for her to walk in on her own. Though there was an exception to every rule, of course, as Estelle laid on the ground of the carriage, wagging his tail and giving Mal a doggy smile with all three heads. You enjoying yourself, boy? Mal asked as she bent down to pet him. Estelle yipped softly and leaned into her pet, especially as Mal started to scratch behind the ear. Ooh, does that feel good? Mal asked with a small chuckle. I almost wish I wasn't in a dress, or I could kneel down and pet you more. Estelle grinned and hopped onto the seat next to Mal, rolling over on his belly. Okay, Mal chuckled. I can take a hint. She shook her head and started to give Estelle a belly rub, all while waving to the crowds with her other hand. Am I really ready for this? Mal thought as the carriage neared the cathedral. Yeah, I can handle the idea of being Ben's wife, Ben's partner. I've been Uma's co-captain for my whole life. But Queen? You'd think after all these years you'd have remembered how to keep your personal thoughts out of the mental link, Haddie thought with a chuckle. Were you lurking on the link? Well, yeah, there's nothing good on TV. See, this weird purple-haired woman's being made queen and everyone thinks it's a big deal. Mal chuckled. I almost thought Uma would be the one giving me the pep talk, little brother. Oh, she can if you want her to, Harry said, except for the fact that she's too busy making out with Harry in her coat closet. Who do you think walked in on said make-out session? I need brain bleach, Mally. After all, Harry's like my older brother, and I know you think of him like a brother, too. Just like you think the same about Jay. How would you like it if you walked in on me making out with someone? You finally admitting something, bro? Just remember, you're not old enough yet to act on any feelings you have towards Alexandria. What? Gods, no, Mally! We're just friends. A guy and a girl can be just friends, you know. Methinks the godling protests too much. Seriously, Mal? You'd think you'd be the last one to assume I had feelings over Alex. Considering you told me Ben thought you and Jay were dating. And the fact that you're the only one other than her siblings who can call Alexandria Alex is just beside the point, it is. Why are you the way you are? Would you have me any other way, Hats? Lady Mal? The carriage driver's voice broke through Mal's thoughts as she looked over at him. We have arrived at the cathedral. Oh, Mal said softly. Thank you. Of course. The driver nodded as he opened the carriage door to let Mal out. Estelle hopped out first as Mal gathered up her skirt of her dress, a gift from Evie and Dizzy for the second biggest day of her life. The dress was purple, of course, and seemed to have taken inspiration from the dress that Evie had made for her to wear at Cotillion. The skirt seemed to be painted to look like scales, while the shoulders, yet again, looked like dragon wings. There was probably a reason why those in the journalism industry had started calling her the Dragon Queen. Though Mal had no objection to such a nickname, after all, she could turn into a dragon. At least they weren't calling her Maleficent's daughter anymore. "Hello, Mal." Belle smiled as Mal reached the door to the cathedral. "Excited?" "Nervous, actually," Mal told her mother-in-law. She was meeting Mal at the door, just as Beast had met Ben, since Mal would be taking her title officially. Before, Belle had been referred to as Queen Mother or Queen Belle. Meanwhile, Beast was inside, more than likely trying to stem Ben's nerves, and keep him from hopping all over the place like an excited puppy. King or not. "How do you handle it when you were crowned?" Belle gave Mal another kind smile. It helped that Adam and I were crowned at the same time, after he was made the High King. "But you'll be fine. Knowing Ben, he's probably counting down the seconds before he can refer to you as his queen as many times as he'd like." "You know your son well, then," Mal said with a slight chuckle. "I should hope so," Belle said, shaking her head. "Before we go inside, let me give you some advice that Adam once gave Ben. A queen has to believe in herself, even when it isn't easy." Mal smiled slightly, reaching out to take Belle's hand. "Thank you, Belle." "Of course, honey," Belle said, giving Mal's hand a gentle squeeze. "You are exactly the queen Ben needs. And don't you forget it. If you ever need someone to lend an ear, just remember that the Learning to be Royal Club will always be there. Though I'm sure your friends would be happy to lend an ear as well. I think Uma, Jay and Harry especially would not be happy if I started holding stuff back from them," Mal said with a small chuckle, "and Ben would join them. Of that I have no doubt." Belle smiled and shook her head. "Oh, I'm sure of that as well. And now I think it's time for us to take our places. And get you another title under your belt, Lady Mal." Mal shook her head as Belle walked off, guided by an attendant who had been waiting by the door. Taking a deep breath, Mal walked through the doors to the cathedral, hoping beyond hope that her coronation wouldn't be exciting as Ben's was. "Hats?" "Yeah, Molly?" Can you wish me luck? Please? The only person I've talked to other than you was Belle, and I think I'll just worry Mum if I ask her to wish me luck. Not to mention how Dad would react. I think he'd freak out even worse than Mum if he thought something was wrong." "Well, you don't need it, Mal, but sure," Hattie thought, and Mal could make out a hint of amusement in her brother's thoughts. "Good luck. You want to know why I know you don't need it, though?" "Why's that?" "Because you've been a leader your whole life. You helped Uma lead the rats. You led the VKs over here in Oridon. There is no one else I'd rather call my queen." "Oh, Hattie." "Besides, think how annoyed Zeus likely is now that you're going to be queen, you know?" Mal shook her head slightly as she snorted in amusement, causing Estelle to look up at her. "Hads, you know Zeus gifted Ben immortality, right? It's likely that he's warmed up to us by now." "If you say so, Mally. If you say so. Also, Dad wants to know why you're talking to me and not him right now." "Because I'm trying to maintain my composure, and Dad's likely going to say something that'll have me laughing my head off. Not the best look for a queen on her coronation day." "Ah, gotcha. Fair warning, Ben had to stop Akio from bursting out singing. Something about feeling elated or gassy?" Mal chuckled under her breath as the doors to the main hall of the cathedral opened, and she made her way down the same aisle that Ben had walked down so many years ago. Estelle had already made his way down in the aisle and was sitting next to her mum and dad, proudly standing in the front. Actually, they and Haddie were standing in the same area she had stood for Ben's coronation, with Uma and Harry and Jay standing next to them. Sure, some of the Auradon prep kids weren't happy about having to be up on the balcony, but this was Mal's coronation. Ben was standing on the platform with his parents and fairy godmother, and Mal couldn't help but give him a small smile as she knelt down before him. Thank God Ben insisted on a small cushion for me to kneel on for my coronation. Mal thought. The hard stone would not be something pleasant to kneel on for even a brief period of time. She couldn't help but smile, though, as Fairy Godmother removed Belle's crown from her head and rested it on a pillow that was sitting behind her. From there she picked up the crown on the pillow next to it and turned toward Mal. The crown in question was probably about as opposite to Belle's crown as you could make it. Instead of a gold base, it was silver as the chain of Mal's flame pendant necklace. In fact, the only similarity to its predecessor were the blue gems that were sprinkled throughout. But, in typical Mal fashion, there were also blue gems that seemed to alternate with the blue. Fairy Godmother lowered her crown onto Mal's head, and Mal couldn't help but smile at Ben once more, catching his eye. Ben smiled back before going to lift the bell jar which held Fairy Godmother's wand. He handed the wand to Fairy Godmother, who made her way in front of Mal. Do you solemnly swear to govern the peoples of Auradon and the Isle of the Lost with justice and mercy as long as you shall reign? Fairy Godmother asked. I do so solemnly swear, Mal said, nodding her head slightly. Fairy Godmother tapped both of Mal's shoulders with her wand, smiling at her former people. Then it is my honour and my joy to bless our new queen. Congratulations, my dear. Mal smiled as she rose. Thank you, Fairy Godmother.
Speak, your specialness! Speak, O fancy one! Speak, your royal purpleness!
Mal chuckled and shook her head as she looked over at Jay, Harry and Haddie. Maybe if people weren't calling for speeches, I'd be able to give one.
I'm counting on it, your royal dragonness,
Uma said, quickly covering Harry's mouth, just as Lonnie did with Jay and Alexandria did with Haddie. Appreciated, Lady Uma, Mal said, chuckling as Uma made a small face. Ben quickly moved to stand next to his wife, his fingers interlocking with hers, as if they were a puzzle piece finding its mate. Thank you all for coming, Mal said. I know there has been some concern amongst some of the Auradon citizens when King Ben first announced that he was bringing over children from the Isle of the Lost to live in Auradon. But I like to think that those concerns have been negated. There will always be some prejudice, but at the same time, you never know where the good or bad will come from. Which is why, as long as I am Ben's queen, the barrier of the Isle will always be open to those who wish to make a life for themselves in Auradon, who wish only to grow and live peacefully. But should they be a threat to Auradon, the barrier will not allow them to leave. Sliding her hand out of Ben's and walking over to Belle, Mal smiled as she took Belle's hand. I promise you, Belle, the flag of Auradon will always fly high, she said, her soft voice carrying over every ear in the cathedral. I know it will, Belle said as she covered Mal's hand with her other hand. Because I know it's time for the next generation to lead the way. It's time for new ideas, new customs, new beginnings. You are going to make a fine queen, Mal. You just keep listening to your heart. That's definitely something I can do. Mal smiled as she made her way back to Ben's side. Ben smiled and took her hand once more. Pulling her close to him, he laid a gentle kiss on her lips.
I love you, he whispered as they parted. My queen.
You really had to have that out of the gate, didn't you? Mal asked with a small chuckle.
Oh, yeah.
Mal shook her head as Ben smirked and gently tilted her crown to the right, just as Mal had done to his crown in previous royal events. Really?
Turnabout's fair play, Ben told her before kissing her forehead. And now, my queen, I think you and I have a party to get to.
Mal chuckled and held out her arm. Only if I am accompanied by my handsome king.
I walked right into that one, didn't I?
Hey, you know our agreement. We can only use the title if ours is used first. Ben chuckled as they made their way down the aisle. Mal stopped to give her mum and dad a hug.
Congrats, Molly,
Hades said, his voice soft.
You're going to be a great queen. I know it.
Thanks, Dad, Mal said, looking up at him with a smile. And no matter how old I get, remember this. I will always be your little girl. Oh, I think it would be impossible for your dad to think of you any other way, Persephone said as she pulled Mal into a hug. Don't forget to visit, okay? Especially after your sibling's born. A wild Cerberus couldn't stop me, Mum, Mal promised before going to hug Haddie.
Don't become some prissy royal, Captain,
Haddie whispered. It's me, Hads. If I become prissy, I know you'll be there to steer me back to the aisle side, Mal whispered in his ear. The two siblings separated as Ben held out his hand once more. Taking it, the king and queen walked out of the cathedral to their awaiting kingdom. Presenting King Benjamin Florian Lebete and Queen Melinda Bertha Lebete, Lumiere called, and Ben smiled at Mal. Mal couldn't help but smile back, knowing that whatever life threw at her, she could handle it. As long as she had Ben, Uma, Harry, Jay, Haddie, and the rest of their friends and her family by their side, there was nothing that could throw her. Bring it on, life, she thought as she waved at the crowd. I think it's safe to say I've got this now. End of chapter and end of story. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh my goodness, I love it. Ginny, I've said it once and I'll say it again. You are an artist, my friend. You really are. I love that. I really do. All the moments, and it's just so cute. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye, my guys, gals, and albino pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.